Have you ever felt like you're constantly giving to others, leaving little time and energy for yourself? Do you struggle with saying no and setting boundaries, even when you're feeling overwhelmed and stretched too thin? If so, you're not alone. Many of us find ourselves in this position, putting our own needs on the back burner while trying to meet the demands of work, family, and relationships. But what if I told you that prioritizing self-care and setting healthy boundaries is not only essential for your well-being, but also for the quality of your relationships and overall life satisfaction? In this video, we'll delve into the world of self-care and boundary setting, exploring why these practices are so important and how you can start implementing them in your own life. We'll break down the misconceptions surrounding self-care, provide practical strategies for making time for yourself, and discuss the power of establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of your own needs and desires, as well as the tools and confidence to put yourself first and create a life that truly nourishes and fulfills you. Self-care is often misunderstood as a selfish or indulgent practice, but in reality, it's a fundamental aspect of maintaining our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. When we neglect our own needs and constantly put others first, we risk burning out, becoming resentful, and compromising our health and happiness. Self-care is about taking intentional steps to care for ourselves, whether that means engaging in activities that bring us joy, taking time to rest and recharge, or seeking support when we need it. The benefits of regular self-care practices are numerous. When we prioritize self-care, we're better able to manage stress, regulate our emotions, and approach challenges with resilience and clarity. We're also more likely to experience increased self-awareness, improved self-esteem, and a greater sense of overall life satisfaction. By filling our own cup first, we become better equipped to show up fully in our relationships and responsibilities, without sacrificing our own well-being in the process. One of the key steps in prioritizing self-care is understanding your unique needs and preferences. What works for one person may not work for another, so it's important to take the time to reflect on what truly nourishes and recharges you. Consider the different dimensions of self-care, such as physical, emotional, and mental well-being, and identify activities or practices that support each area. Physical self-care might include activities like exercise, healthy eating, getting enough sleep, or taking a relaxing bath. Emotional self-care could involve practices like journaling, talking with a trusted friend or therapist, or engaging in creative hobbies that allow you to express yourself. Mental self-care might include activities like meditation, learning something new, or setting aside time for quiet reflection. Creating a personalized self-care plan can be a helpful way to ensure that you're consistently prioritizing your well-being. Take some time to brainstorm a list of self-care activities that resonate with you and consider how you can incorporate them into your daily or weekly routine. Remember, self-care doesn't have to be time-consuming or expensive. Even small acts of kindness towards yourself can make a big difference in how you feel. One of the biggest challenges many of us face when it comes to self-care is finding the time to prioritize it. In a world that values productivity and constant hustling, it can feel like there's never enough time to slow down and focus on ourselves. However, making time for self-care is essential if we want to maintain our well-being and show up fully in our lives. One strategy for incorporating self-care into a busy schedule is to start small and build from there. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire routine overnight, look for small pockets of time where you can prioritize your needs. This might mean waking up 15 minutes earlier to practice a quick meditation or using your lunch break to take a walk outside. Over time, these small acts of self-care can add up to significant improvements in your overall well-being. Another helpful approach is to schedule self-care activities into your calendar, just as you would any other important appointment or commitment. By treating self-care as a non-negotiable priority, you're more likely to follow through and make it a consistent part of your routine. Remember, taking care of yourself is not a luxury or a reward. It's a necessary foundation for living a healthy, fulfilling life. In addition to prioritizing self-care, setting and maintaining healthy boundaries is another essential component of taking care of ourselves. Boundaries are the limits we set in our relationships and interactions with others, communicating what we are and are not willing to accept. When we have clear, consistent boundaries, we're better able to protect our time, energy, and emotional well-being. However, setting boundaries can be challenging, especially if we've been conditioned to prioritize others' needs over our own. We may fear disappointing or upsetting others, or worry that setting boundaries will lead to conflict or rejection. It's important to remember that boundaries are not about controlling others or being selfish. They're about honoring our own needs and desires and creating healthy, mutually respectful relationships. The first step in setting effective boundaries is getting clear on what your personal limits and non-negotiables are. Take some time to reflect on the areas of your life where you feel stretched too thin or taken advantage of. Consider the different types of boundaries you may need to set, such as emotional boundaries, e.g., not taking on others' problems as your own; physical boundaries, e.g., deciding when and how you're comfortable with physical touch; and time boundaries, e.g., setting limits on work hours or social commitments. It can be helpful to make a list of your personal values and priorities, as these can serve as a guide for determining where you need to set boundaries. For example, if one of your core values is spending quality time with family, you may need to set boundaries around work hours or outside commitments that interfere with this priority. Remember, identifying your boundaries is an ongoing process that requires self-reflection and honesty. Be patient with yourself as you explore what feels right for you, and don't be afraid to adjust your boundaries as your needs and circumstances change. Once you've identified your boundaries, the next step is communicating them clearly and assertively to others. This can be a challenging process, especially if we're not used to standing up for ourselves or fear confrontation. However, expressing our boundaries is essential for maintaining healthy relationships and protecting our well-being. When communicating boundaries, it's important to be direct, specific, and consistent. Use I statements to express your needs and feelings rather than blaming or attacking others. For example, instead of saying, "You always take advantage of me," try saying, "I feel overwhelmed when I'm asked to take on additional tasks without notice. In the future, I need at least 24 hours notice before taking on new projects." It can also be helpful to practice communicating boundaries in low-stakes situations, such as with a trusted friend or in a role-play scenario. This can help build your confidence and prepare you for more challenging conversations. Remember, setting boundaries is not about being rigid or inflexible. It's about finding a balance that works for you and your relationships. Be open to negotiation and compromise when appropriate, but also trust your instincts and stand firm in your non-negotiables. Even when we communicate our boundaries clearly and assertively, there may be times when others cross or violate them. This can be a challenging and emotionally charged situation, as it may bring up feelings of anger, hurt, or betrayal. When dealing with boundary violations, it's important to first acknowledge and validate your own emotions. Give yourself permission to feel whatever comes up, without judgment or self-blame. Remember, you are not responsible for others' actions or reactions. You can only control your own behavior and choices. Once you've taken a moment to process your emotions, consider how you want to respond to the boundary violation. In some cases, a gentle reminder or clarification of your boundaries may be sufficient. For example, you might say something like, "I know we discussed me not answering work emails after 6 p.m., but I noticed you sent me several messages last night. Can we please stick to our agreed-upon boundaries going forward?" In other cases, a more firm or assertive response may be necessary, especially if the boundary violation is a pattern or if it has caused significant harm. This might involve setting stricter limits, ending a toxic relationship, or seeking outside support or intervention. Remember, enforcing your boundaries is not about punishing others or seeking revenge. It's about protecting your own well-being and creating healthy, mutually respectful relationships. Trust your instincts and prioritize your own needs, even when it feels difficult or uncomfortable. Self-care and boundary setting are essential in all types of relationships, whether with romantic partners, family members, friends, or colleagues. When we prioritize our own needs and communicate our boundaries clearly, we create a foundation for healthy, fulfilling relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. In romantic relationships, self-care and boundaries can help prevent codependency, resentment, and burnout. By taking responsibility for our own happiness and well-being, we avoid placing unrealistic expectations on our partners or relying on them to meet all of our needs. Setting clear boundaries around communication, intimacy, and personal space can also help foster a sense of trust, autonomy, and emotional safety. In family relationships, self-care and boundaries can be particularly challenging, as we may have deeply ingrained patterns and dynamics that are difficult to change. However, setting limits around toxic behavior, unhealthy expectations, or invasive involvement can be essential for maintaining our mental health and well-being. This might involve learning to say no to unreasonable requests, setting limits on the amount of time or energy we invest in family matters, or seeking outside support to navigate complex family issues. In friendships and professional relationships, self-care and boundaries can help ensure that we're engaging in mutually respectful and supportive interactions. This might involve setting limits on the amount of emotional labor we're willing to take on, communicating our needs and expectations clearly, and being selective about the people and situations we choose to invest our time and energy in. Remember, healthy relationships require ongoing communication, negotiation, and flexibility. Be willing to adjust your boundaries as needed, but also trust your instincts and prioritize your own well-being in all of your interactions and relationships. One of the biggest obstacles many of us face when prioritizing self-care and setting boundaries is the guilt and self-doubt that can arise. We may worry that we're being selfish, unreasonable, or ungrateful by putting our own needs first, or fear that others will judge or reject us for setting limits. These feelings of guilt and self-doubt are often rooted in deep-seated beliefs and patterns, such as people-pleasing tendencies, low self-worth, or a fear of abandonment. It's important to recognize that these beliefs are not facts, and that prioritizing our own well-being is not only valid, but essential for living a healthy, fulfilling life. One helpful strategy for overcoming guilt and self-doubt is to practice reframing our thoughts and beliefs. Instead of viewing self-care and boundary setting as selfish or unreasonable, try seeing them as acts of self-love and self-respect. Remind yourself that taking care of your own needs is not only beneficial for you, but also for the people in your life who rely on you to be your best self. Another helpful approach is to practice self-compassion and let go of perfectionism. Recognize that setting and maintaining boundaries is a learning process, and that it's okay to make mistakes or have setbacks along the way. Be kind and understanding with yourself, just as you would with a good friend who was struggling with similar challenges. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and care from yourself and others. By prioritizing your own well-being and setting healthy boundaries, you're not only taking care of yourself, but also modeling self-love and self-respect for others in your life. Creating a sustainable and consistent self-care practice is essential for maintaining our well-being over the long term. While it's important to prioritize self-care in the moment, it's equally important to develop habits and routines that support our ongoing physical, emotional, and mental health. One key aspect of cultivating a sustainable self-care practice is finding activities and practices that truly resonate with you and bring you joy. While there are countless self-care strategies out there, not every approach will work for every person. Take the time to experiment with different activities and find what feels most nourishing and fulfilling for you. Another important factor is starting small and building gradually over time. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire life overnight, focus on incorporating 1 or 2 new self-care practices at a time. This might mean starting with a 5-minute meditation practice each morning, or taking a short walk after dinner each night. As these practices become more ingrained in your routine, you can gradually add on and expand your self-care toolkit. It's also important to be flexible and adaptable in your self-care practice, recognizing that your needs and circumstances may change over time. What works for you in one season of life may not work in another, and that's okay. Be open to adjusting your routine as needed, and don't be afraid to let go of practices that no longer serve you. Finally, remember that self-care is not a destination, but an ongoing journey. There will be times when you fall off track or struggle to prioritize your own needs, and that's a normal part of the process. Be patient and compassionate with yourself, and trust that every small step you take towards self-care is a meaningful investment in your overall well-being. Prioritizing self-care and setting healthy boundaries are essential skills for navigating the challenges and demands of modern life. By taking intentional steps to care for ourselves and communicate our needs and limits, we create a foundation for greater resilience, fulfillment, and overall life satisfaction. Throughout this video, we've explored the importance of self-care and boundary setting and provided practical strategies for incorporating these practices into your daily life. We've discussed the benefits of regular self-care, the power of identifying and communicating your boundaries, and the challenges of overcoming guilt and self-doubt. Remember, prioritizing your own well-being is not selfish or indulgent. It's a necessary act of self-love and self-respect. By filling your own cup first, you become better equipped to show up fully in your relationships and responsibilities, and to create a life that truly nourishes and fulfills you. As you continue on your self-care and boundary-setting journey, trust your inner wisdom and prioritize your own needs and desires. Surround yourself with supportive people who respect and honor your boundaries, and don't be afraid to seek outside support or resources when needed. Above all, remember that you are worthy of love, care, and respect from yourself and others. By prioritizing your own well-being and setting healthy boundaries, you're not only taking care of yourself, but also modeling self-love and self-respect for others in your life. So take a deep breath, trust your instincts, and take that first small step towards a life of greater self-care and boundary setting. Your future self will thank you.